Hi, I'm Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell here at the Unity Center in San Diego. Thank you so much for watching today. If you'd like to support the work that we do here, please consider making a contribution. Go to our website. It's easy to do. Thank you in advance for that contribution.
So gratitude and gravy. I don't usually title my talks in that kind of way, but as I was thinking about what do I want to share with regard to the Sunday before Thanksgiving, obviously gratitude. But then I thought about what Thanksgiving is for me. And in my family, those who are close to me have heard me say many times, it's my favorite holiday of the year. I absolutely love Thanksgiving. To me, Thanksgiving is family and lots of food. It's friends and lots of food. It's tradition and lots of food. Okay, so it's lots of food and maybe lots of mashed potatoes and gravy. I am teased mercilessly by my son, by my daughter, by my husband, that it doesn't ever matter how many or how few people we have for Thanksgiving. And this Thanksgiving, it's just going to be the four of us. But no matter how many or how few, I always buy enough potatoes as if I'm going to feed an army, because I kind of like mashed potatoes and gravy. Well, you will not believe what happened to me this week. I was making out my grocery list, and on Tuesday, we had the San Diego Food Bank here at the Unity Center. We gave them our parking lot to be one of their distribution sites for their senior program. It was a very touching and very moving and rewarding experience to play a part in helping to alleviate some of the hunger need here in our area. And when the event was over and we checked in with the leaders from the San Diego Food Bank to see how things went for them, one of the leaders said to Jennifer, who was staffing the event, "We'd like to give you something. Can we give you something? Here are some potatoes." And so Jennifer didn't have the heart to say no, thinking that she'd get a small bag of potatoes, and knowing Mom loves mashed potatoes and gravy at Thanksgiving. I now have, and I'm happy to share, 2 50-pound bags of potatoes that the San Diego Food Bank left with us. Talk about consciousness, right? We say in metaphysics, thoughts held in mind produce in the outer after their kind. And truly, I am happy to share as many bags of potatoes with the band and the staff, small as we are right now. And that was before the talk title, Gratitude and Gravy. But I want to talk to you this morning about what gratitude doesn't look like, what it doesn't look like. So there was a large dog that walked into a butcher shop with a satchel in his mouth. And the butcher looked down at the dog and was kind of curious and said, "You want some meat?" The dog barks, "Woof." So the butcher looks at him and says, "Well, do you want some hamburger or some steak or some liver?" The dog barks, "Woof." Butcher prepares some meat. "Is there anything else you want?" "Woof." "Okay, you want some more meat? I didn't give you enough?" "Woof." "Okay, are we good?" "Yeah, we're good." He reaches into the dog's satchel, and there is money for the items that the dog has just requested from the butcher. Now, the butcher is totally shocked. This is one really smart dog, so he decides to follow the dog home. And he follows the dog home. The dog goes up a couple of flights of stairs in the apartment building and scratches on the door. And finally, the owner opens the door and starts yelling at the dog. And the butcher's saying, wait a minute. This dog, you've got the most amazing and intelligent animal. Why are you yelling at this dog? The owner says, because this is the 3rd time this week he's left his keys at home. That is not what gratitude looks like. That is not what gratitude looks like. One certainly closer to home within our spiritual teaching and tradition comes out of the Gospel of Luke. Now, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." For you see, leprosy was a very, very serious and common disease at the time. When he saw them, Jesus said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. One of them, when he saw he was cleansed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Rise and go. Your faith has made you well." Think about, we often think about the one who was healed, right? But what about well, all 10 were healed, but we think about the one who came back and gave thanks, but what about the 9 that did not? And in some ways, I think that is too descriptive of human tendency to take things for granted, to not express our appreciation, to not express our gratitude. I mean, how many letters to Santa are sent through the U.S. Post Office, through the mail before Christmas time, right? How many thank you notes are sent to Santa afterwards? I know some families do that, and yay for the ones that do, but it's so easy to be on the asking end of things, and so often to kind of forget how important and how meaningful gratitude is, how important it is to not only feel it, but to not let it just stay inside, to express it, to let our gratitude motivate actions that we take. What does gratitude look like? It looks like saying thank you. It looks like when your life is working well, reaching out and helping someone else who's having a tough time. It's sharing more when you have been blessed. I just received and read a story from one of our members, a couple in our church, who have recently, during COVID, experienced a boom in their business. And they made a decision to find out about some families in need here in San Diego. And through a very thoughtful process, they were put in touch with 5 specific families. And they gave a very generous gift to each of those 5 families as they met with them for a little while and shared some of their story and some of why they were doing what they were doing. The part of the story that touched me even more than the tremendous generosity of this couple was that they said to each of the families that they gave a gift to, "The only thing we ask is that you take 1/10 of this and you pay it forward to someone else who is in need." What is so beautiful to me about that is the teaching moment in that. It is to say to someone who had been struggling, here is a gift, and here is an opportunity as you have been blessed to share some of that and experience what it feels like to have enough, at least in this moment, to be able to give something and pay it forward. There are so many examples, really, of what it is to be grateful and not just to feel gratitude, but to allow the gratitude that we feel to cause us to take an action. And maybe yours is not to give a financial gift to someone, but I bet if you keep your eyes open and your ears open and your mind open, you will see a need before you that out of your blessing and out of your gratitude, you might be the very one to meet that need. What does gratitude look like? I read of another story of a woman by the name of Pam who lived in Chicago. She worked in a big high-rise office building, and every morning as she would walk through the courtyard area into her office complex, she would pass an older woman, shabbily dressed, begging for food or for money. And most of the time, Pam would give her some money. And the woman, whether she received something from Pam or not, always seemed to look up and to smile and to say a cheerful greeting. And Pam felt that she wanted to give her something, and she did most every time she saw her. And then Pam noticed after a while, after about a year, the woman wasn't there anymore. And she began to wonder what had become of her. And within a few weeks, the woman was back. Same old coat, same place, and same, sitting in the same place. And Pam went into her purse to give the woman something. And this time the woman said, "No, I have something for you." And the woman reached into her brown paper bag and pulled out a very carefully wrapped donut to give to Pam. And you said, "You see, I have finally gotten a job, and I don't need you to give me anything anymore. I wanted to give something back." What a beautiful demonstration, right? To be motivated by a generous heart, to me, is really the end all of Thanksgiving. It's not just to be grateful, it's to let that gratitude motivate us in such a way that we want to live in a way that we make life better for others in whatever way we possibly can and to whatever extent we possibly can. Time for another story. This one is not so much, well, it is about a person, but it's also about a whale, a humpback whale, a female humpback whale. And when I first learned of this story, I was visibly moved by it. It just touched me in such a deep and sweet way. It happened in San Francisco near the Golden Gate Bridge. It was wintertime, December 14th, 2005. So the story's a little dated, but such a beautiful story. What had happened is a female humpback whale had become entangled in a web of crab traps and lines, so much so that she was weighted down by hundreds of pounds of these traps that caused her to struggle to stay afloat. She had hundreds of yards of line rope wrapped around her body, her tail, her torso, and even a line tugging in her mouth. A fisherman just outside of the Golden Gate Bridge spotted her and called for help, and within a few hours, an environmental rescue team arrived. And it was determined that she was so bad off that the only way to rescue her was for the environmental team to actually dive into the water and use curved knives to cut away all of the ropes and the nets and everything that had weighted her down and become so entangled. But they also knew that this would be tremendously dangerous because the sheer size of this beautiful creature, one flap of the tail could knock them out and could kill them. But to a person, what they talked about is as they worked very carefully around her, she never moved, she never exhibited any aggression. And even the diver who cut the rope out of her mouth said it seemed as if her eye was following him all along the way, as if she was grateful to him. And when they finally had her completely free, the part of the story that was so moving is she did not act in the way that they had expected, which would have been to just quickly leave because she was finally free from this entanglement. But instead of darting out to sea free, she lingered for a while. She swam around in joyous circles. They said that she even swam back to each and every one of the rescue workers and kind of nudged them in a playful way as if to say thank you. The rescue workers reported that it was the most incredibly beautiful experience of their lives. I think that when we get right to the heart of it, when we allow ourselves not to be so consumed by the negative news around us, when we allow ourselves to step back and slow down a little bit and catch a breath, that gratefulness and kindness and compassion are really at the core of who and what we are as human beings, and I think are at the core of many, if not all, sentient beings. So what is it that leads us to a lack of gratitude? I want to share just a few ideas with you, because sometimes if we can be aware of what it is that trips us up, if we can just know what that is and name it, then we can do something about it. As soon as we are aware of a behavior or an attitude or a thought, in that moment of awareness is tremendous power. In that moment of awareness is the opportunity to choose, to make a different decision, to take a different action, to hold a different thought. So one of the things that trips us up is that we believe things should always be getting better and better and better. And if they're not always getting better and better and better, if things aren't always improving, we can feel ungrateful. Like, well, it's supposed to be that way. How many of you are looking at this Thursday through the eyes that recognize it's not going to be the way you thought it was at the beginning of the year? This Thanksgiving is going to look very different, and it may not be better than, probably won't in some ways, be better than Thanksgivings past. And yet, we can still choose in the very experience to look for the good and find it. That's at the very core of our teachings in Unity and in New Thought, to look for the good and to keep on looking until we find it. And that's the real clincher, isn't it? To keep on looking until we find it. But one of the things, this constant striving for better, 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 more, 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 can often trip us up and leave us feeling unsatisfied, leave us feeling ungrateful. Another, and I think this is a biggie, that really contributes to not feeling grateful, is the very ordinary human act of comparison. We look at somebody else's life and it looks better than ours, and so we find ourselves feeling ungrateful for the life that we are living, often never really knowing what's behind that other person's life that on the surface might seem like it's so much better than ours. We look at somebody else's career, the benefits that they have, or their marriage, and we think, wow, that looks like one from a Hallmark, movie. But we don't necessarily know what some of the struggles are, or what they had to learn and overcome to get to that place in their lives. I know that whenever I catch myself in a cycle of comparing, that I wind up feeling terrible, that I wind up feeling so much discouragement or feelings of just lack of gratitude. And I have to really catch myself and say, wait a minute. That is a proven path to unhappiness. Bring your attention back to this moment. Bring your attention back to the here and now. Bring your attention back and look for the good and find it. And not just look for the good and find it, but look for the good, find it, and say thank you for it. What was that quote I read to you earlier in the service? What if we woke up tomorrow and only had in our lives tomorrow what we felt gratitude for today? That could be a very shocking tomorrow we wake up for. Another thing that can certainly contribute to us feeling a lack of gratitude is who we associate with. It is important, on one hand, it is important to make sure that we have some folks in our lives of like mind and like heart, some folks in our lives that speak as we do and are practicing a spiritual teaching in their lives as we are, so that when the journey gets kind of tricky or slippery for us, we have those who care about us, who are seeing things through the same spiritual lens as we are, to help remind us, to help get us back on the path. Now, there is a bit of a danger if we just isolate ourselves with only people who think like we do. We don't want to do that. We do need to keep ourselves open to diversity of points of view all around us. But we do have to have at least a circle of people that are not whiners and complainers and moaners and all sorts of other words I won't even use. But you know what I'm talking about, right? So if it's about being a gatekeeper to the conversations we allow ourselves to continue to be in, to the kinds of relationships that we have, to allow ourselves to at least cultivate, even if it's a small circle, of people who are grateful, who practice gratitude, not gratitude only gratitude when things are going well, but those who can practice gratitude when things are tough, because they are choosing in the middle of the toughness to at least pull out something of hope. You know, one of the things I think that really helps someone to practice gratitude better, especially in difficult times, is to take the long view. To take the long view. Sometimes we have to live within the mantra, this too shall pass, when things are tough. I know in my family, this Thanksgiving is very different than we would have expected it to be. And I think that, if we're honest, that's true for all of us. This Thanksgiving is very different. The whole year, except for the first couple of months, is very different. And it's difficult. It's difficult. It's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to name that, as long as we also recognize that we have the power not to stay in that mindset, not to stay in that energy. Acknowledge it yet, yes, but refuse to build a permanent residence there. Be a tourist in that attitude for just a short period of time and come back home to the experience of gratitude. Come back home to the practice of it. Remember, you do have the power to lift your vision above whatever is happening that is not of your liking or your choosing. You do have the power to remind yourself, this too shall pass. And I encourage you to find every day, at least one thing that you can say, thank you, God, for this. Namaste, and God bless.